Hello, back with just more of this, because I felt like it. I wanted to do it. Let's see what the first story is. Oh yeah. I needed a moment to remember exactly how that one went. Did I tell a story with knife last time? This one I decided to just let be gone, because, I didn't actually have any story for it. This one and both of them were, I don't know, are they? Oh yeah. One of them is focused on knife, and the other one was like, knife was the thing. Oh right, this is I guess? No, that's the other one. This one starts with just, with I have to preface that this was the first of the one of the first, if not the first, of the stories that were made in this, out of these. So it's kinda cringe. But it starts off basically with the, with, let me think. There was I think this was added a little later, but not that much later from when the original story, than the beginning of the story was. It starts originally with a teen. Actually, I need to tell the actual, like, main part of this story. This story is has, like, of course, Earth, and it's got, like, the gods. Not, like, a specific set of gods, but all the sets of gods are all there in this story, and they make... all of them can make their own... or, like, the sets of them can make their own Earths, or make their own universes, and, like, trillions of human years is equivalent to, I think, trillions of human years is equivalent to, like, one god year or something. I think I settled on 1 trillion way later on, to be specific. But, yeah, it started with that. Or that's the base. And it's actually the gods section. It's basically like its own higher up universe. Originally had time passing linearly. And they were at a high-tech section, what could be the future for us, theoretically. Well, not literally, but, like, because, like, the whole godly stuff, but, you know, there were god scientists, basically. and these scientists had invented a form of time travel. In this story, this didn't actually go very far. That time travel they used, but it actually messed around with time in general, making their main universe making their present time messed up, and eventually ending up with none of the characters from that present time actually being there, and instead all the different gods that that different religions worship being the only ones, all from various time periods depending on when they were initially created. Or initially told about in human history. So, and they all made their own universe. But, this is where it gets cringy. There was a knife was one of the gods of, like, the present time, the only one that ended up staying. This universe's knife. And the rules of this universe were, for her specifically, were basically, or this multiverse, this story, usually I just go with the label story because that makes most sense. Most of the stories are just multiverses, is what they're really labeled as, even if they don't actually involve multiple universes. And the big out, out outside of multiverses or between multiverse stories are usually just stories. Anyway, then so the rules of this story for Knife specifically was that the way she had a unique way of her power working for some reason, and was even for a god immortal. And her power would grow exponentially over time. Like a very slow exponential growth, but exponential growth. And I mean slow in terms of gods in this universe, so, pretty slow. But after it had been a while since she had started gaining power, since she had started being a character that existed in there, so the new gods that kind of weren't even from that time period, so it's honestly more reasonable than I initially was thinking. They were afraid of that power that she had, so they found a way to destroy her body, which is, in all honesty, most of the stories, the main rule of the Knife character, the character Knife, is that she's basically the most powerful being in any given multiverse. But she has the extreme weakness of if she loses her body, she has no power whatsoever. Or pretty much no power at worst. I mean, at best. And it specifically needs to be her own body. She'll often at times end up possessing somebody else's body. Usually that universe is Sabrina. To just get help getting her own body. And that's how it started. And then that universe's Sabrina went and ensured that Universe Sabrina, and of course was possessed by the now spread across the multiverse knife, who then asked for her help making a body for her, to make a body for herself. That Universe Sabrina did it, and that knife then had a body. Wasn't really that angry at the other gods. Probably saw it as reasonable, like I realized it was. And then just decided to fix their home universe. Like, being the only one that could outpower time, technically speaking at least, she just decided to fix their home, the universe of the gods, which the gods had all been abandoned, by the way. All of them went to just live in their own universes that they either made by themselves or with their group, like the Greek or Egyptian gods groups. So that's kind of how that one was. Wait, I think I might have, come to think of it, missed adding a story or two to the list. Oh, never mind. Is that it? That story wasn't exactly a long one, as it was, of course, one of the first. Some of them are honestly feel longer. I kind of just gave more lore to, even when I literally told them in like 1 to 2 nights or days. The unfinished story. Now you may think that that was a mistake, because that's literally labeled the unfinished story. Why would I want to have in here a story literally labeled the unfinished story? That was in fact intentional. That is just the title of the story right now. Technically it was initially supposed to be finished, but some other stuff happened that I might describe when a specific thing is landed on, which I'm not going to tell you what it is. You just have to guess. Anyway, back to the unfinished story. So, this one starts as just, I'm gonna say right now, because this one is like a really obvious inspiration, unlike maybe some of the others. Hold on, let me actually check what were all the inspirations for the ones that I've told. I told you about the fact this was inspired by the Demonic Grey Cat. This one was inspired just by my idea of the V-Room for a lot of it, and just my, at the time, love of virtual reality. This one, which I didn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you what it was, its origin was. This one was based on... This one was literally just going to be a flat-out retelling of fucking The Cult of the Lamb, but with some of the characters, the main characters of my stories, rather than the normal characters. That was, of course, before they added that they said about the multiplayer update, or even before the sex update, apparently, which is apparently a thing. Or I say apparently as if I don't have a fucking brother obsessed with the game. The original doesn't have any direct inspiration. There are a couple that frankly the main inspiration was none a past event or a past thing, or just a hypothetical that I thought of, maybe from somebody like saying something somewhat similar in text form. I'd say about half of them were initially inspired by something else, and the other half were inspired by one of the other three things that I just listed. Most of the ones that are inspired by something are either inspired by a video game, a YouTube video, or a text post on like some social media site. This one is one of those, inspired by the second. It was inspired by the song Cabinet Man. So, of course, the story is about... The story starts with a character from... well... It starts with... Hold on, do I have... Wait, Yeah, I'll just say this. It starts with a character that's called, that I called... Fuck, I can't remember. It was a Sabrina, but not from this universe. From her own separate story, not from this multiverse, not this universe, not anything like that. At the time... Fused Sabrina is what the character is called. She came to the universe, after detecting that there was a knife in there that I think was weird or something. She went in there, tried to find that knife, but later found out it was just it was like a mimic kind of thing, with the pretending to be knife on the inside. After it attacked this universe's Sabrina, which was part of the group of that tried to raid the place, there's a group of people that tried to raid the place, and this universe's Sabrina was one of them. I think that was pre-transition in this universe, for this universe's version of the character. Then that Sabrina got attacked and killed momentarily by the mimic arcade cabinet after the others left because they were told to by Fused. Fused didn't expect that cabinet to be not nice, so she tried to get the two characters to interact with each other or something. Failed. And released that universe's Sabrina on her way after realizing what that was. Later, the Fused found the actual knife of that universe, which was also still in an arcade cabinet, of course. But found out from that character that that was not actually where that character originated. They originated, technically speaking, from a different story called A Path Far Too Unkind, which I can tell by how that originates from there when I get to telling that story. And they basically told the Fuse that as a certain song in Epic would say, their fates are intertwined, they're attached. Sorry, I've gotten interested in Epic the musical recently. That's as far as the story got. They talked a bit about that. Fused got distracted by other stuff, as other universes, other multiverses. And eventually, the universe was left behind when the character that finished the story was effectively lost. I say effectively lost because they were reborn, but they're different now. She's different now. Now, that's another short one. To be fair, one of the plot points of that one is that it's short. Really hope I get to tell, like, either of the prerequisite stories to that. The snail. This one was inspired, of course, partially by just the snail. Everyone knows the snail, the immortal snail with the one, would you press the button of, like, you gain immortality and like $1 million or something, but a hyper intelligent snail is out there with the same shit. And their entire goal is to kill you. Yeah, this isn't exactly like that. It also is based on something of, like, I think there was, like, a video that was about, like, that was a kind of, I don't remember. I just remember that either I or somebody else made, like, a speech from, like, a god or something, or some being, to a character who was soon to become immortal and start being chased by the snail, if not already there. And yada yada yada, you know how the snail works. Except in this one, it's slightly different. The guy doesn't get $1 million, neither does the snail, but one of the biggest benefits is that everybody is immortal. Every human became immortal. Every sentient species became immortal. So other ones out there in the universe were also given immortality. And the snail's out for all of them. Its goal is to kill every single sentient being out there, so it can finally rest its life and rest itself. Finally, let itself rest. Be done with this immortal life. This being who told the man, also told, there's a man, of course, that was told this, as you could tell by the fact that I ended up saying that unintentionally when referencing a different character. There was a single person on the planet Earth, a random man, a construction worker, who was told about the immortality and the snail. He thought it was bogus. It was something told to him in a dream by a strange being. A somewhat godlike being, but not God. There is no God in this universe. This man goes and lives his life for that day. He's at the top of a structure that him and his crew are working on. They're talking, and one of them falls off. Oh shit, he's gonna die. And then he doesn't. He's perfectly fine after falling off. And then the guy who was told about the snail was told about the immortality in the snail. It's like, oh shit, if the immortality is true, then there's also the snail part. I have to tell them. And then he's told by the voice, the strange voice, that hey, if you do that, you will be its next target. That scares him sufficiently enough to not tell the others. Eventually, it is found out by people that there is an immortal snail, and every time that somebody does manage to get away from the said snail, the same voice will tell them that if you tell others about the immortal snail, you will be the next target. And they'll probably be soon after. I don't remember exactly about that bit. Then, this led to all of those people, of course, except who did end up telling others, did in fact also become the next target, and all got killed successfully by the snail. Eventually, since humanity cannot die under any circumstances not involving the snail, they managed to successfully get working space travel to Mars. and they send a civilization out there. Since there's a lot less concern about, oh hey, what if they can't breathe out there, or what if they don't have food, or what if they don't have water? Because nobody needs all of that stuff anymore. At this point, it's just a you have it when you feel like it. It's still treated like a requirement just in case something were to happen to the immortality that humans were gained, given they actually thought about it. Actually, I don't think I thought about it enough to even think about how shit would change economically and shit. For this, so I'm just gonna say that's what happened. But anyway, I'm gonna now ignore that because I realized. But I do remember the guy and a group of others, not including a lot of that guy's friends, were sent to Mars. Mars was in communications with Earth, but then eventually lost it because the snail was getting a fucking around. Having successfully killed at least 90% of Earth. Sooner rather than later, the snail's path led into... sooner rather than later, somebody eventually escaped Earth. This character was this universe's Sabrina. This universe does not have a knife, not in the current state of the story. I say that because the current state of the story is actually almost over. I have a lot more unfinished stories in here than I thought I did. But anyway, this universe's Sabrina then uses a rocket to go out to fucking Mars and shit, and gets really fucking mad, reasonably so, at the guy who was initially told about all this stuff, because she has figured out that he has been told that stuff. I think by the same guy, the voice that, like, tells all of them to never tell anybody else. Also, obviously, she tells everybody about the fucking snail. Even though she was also told by the voice, don't tell anybody. She's not really concerned about that because although she's still very concerned about the snail getting up there, it is also a snail. It will take a while before it can manage to launch itself out of Earth. It does know where every sentient being that it's after is at all times, though. And, of course, is intending to target this universe's Sabrina. Because she told everybody after being told not to tell everybody. She also got, again, very mad at guy who was given this information initially, and then suggested putting him in some kind of jail cell or sending him back to Earth with the snail or something. Basically punishing the guy severely for his decision to let himself live for the sake of killing everybody else. And that's where that one fucking ends. That makes 3 3 stories that total half the length of the one main story I told last time. The future of virtual reality. Please just give me a long one. Ooh, let's go. This one is really long, actually, which is amazing. I want to tell a long one. A past far too unkind. Let's start in the beginning. Beginning. Let's start in the beginning. back before any of these other stories, these other multiverses existed. Back before it was, before existence, as it's called, was as it is today. There was a species called the Enkline who were living in constant fear of the existential protector. They were living in constant fear of a very powerful being that could destroy multiverses in half a second. They were very fearful of that being. So, the Enkline, they weren't, of course, the only species that was afraid of this character. Many beings across the entirety of that point in time of existence were all fearing for their lives against this guy. But the Enkline were the only ones who could actually fucking do shit about him. Granted, they weren't supposed to be. That being was trying his best to stop them from doing it, but he failed. And the Enkline, that's like the only alien species name I have, by the way. I made it up myself, but it's like the only one I have. Anyway, the Enkline made something that would allow them to become powerful. Almost as powerful as that being they wanted to defeat individually. And between all of them, they're far more powerful than he ever could be. This also, though, would lock this being, this guy himself in non-existence. Into non-existence. For a long period of time, at least. This guy was trapped and didn't know it for a bit, I think, and eventually he did wake up, see that he was trapped in non-existence, and try his best to break free. But that's a later date thing. Later in the same story. Meanwhile, the Enkline, now thriving, although the only species from the old existence that still exists, each one can have power over their own multiverse. Each one could have their own infinite multiverse, filled with each multiverse with infinite universes. Each universe being an infinite universe. Theoretically, at least, for that one. Anyway, each Enkline, of course, controlled their own universe. Their own multiverse. And there were an infinite number of Enklines, too. But something started happening. Even though there should have been infinite Enklines, the amount of Enklines was decreasing. So far down that I think there was like tens to maybe hundreds of them by the time they actually did something about it. Using their already pretty high level of technology from before their new existence, added with their new levels of power and technology since their new existence, they managed to create a way. They realized that whatever was making them disappear must have been too weak to face all of them at once, but strong enough to face at least one of them by itself when it came to power. So, of course, they decided to fuse together into one combined being, taking the form of taking the form of this story's knife. The original knife. Sometimes called sword in modern day. Yes, I know it's a cringe name. I couldn't think of anything fucking better, alright? Of course, I realized I haven't even told you what knife is supposed to look like. Knife in all of these stories is small, floating, green-haired cat girl, with, of course, meaning cat ears and tail, with purple eyes. Or magenta if you're a nerd. Like me. Anyway. That is where that character's first form came from. The original is just the first story I made. This is the first story timeline-wise. Well after I started actually having good storytelling skill. Anyway, oh shit. This, when they fused, they still had tens to hundreds of consciousnesses in a single being. The consciousness fusion was to be a lot longer requiring than the physical fusion into this one small green cat girl form. Anyway, after some time, the being who was killing the Entine went face to face with the original knife, or the original or sword. The original knife is the best description. Although that does make it sound like I'm talking about knife from the original story. But that would be Goddess Knife. Name-wise. Proper nickname-wise. Anyway, this original knife fought with him. A lot of the times different versions of knife have different, like, slightly different abilities, or different usages of their abilities at the very least, but this one has an entire unique ability that any other version of knife since then has not had. This ability being the ability to duplicate herself, which is a pretty common ability from different knives. But as this knife has another ability that is pretty unique of absorbing power by absorbing other beings. But since, I guess, the existence hadn't quite, like, leveled it out skill-wise to, like, accommodate for the fact, or leveled it out ability-wise to make up for the fact that 90% of everything, 90+% of everything currently around was in fact made by this one character that could as well duplicate herself at an exactly equivalent power. She was able to duplicate herself and then absorb herself to increase her own power. She could do this as much as she wanted. She initially was a bit too weak to beat existence, which wasn't exactly what the Incline were thinking, but hey, they obviously just kind of assumed based on the fact that it wasn't killing all of them at once. So, you know, very plausible. Now, this knife then went to do this using this duplicating and absorbing yourself ability, well overpower this other being, which was labeled as existence. Wait, no, did she need to do that against existence? Maybe she didn't. I don't remember. This being was basically the culmination of existence, as the entirety of this story, all these storylines combined, is called. And its intent was to as existence itself, it knew that eventually everything had to die. The Incline were a bit too cocky, getting to the point that they really couldn't die without some quote unquote, not like actually a quote from the character, but I'm saying quote as in what it could be called divine intervention. And that's what existence is doing. Intervening to ensure that the Incline were extinct. Went extinct, just like everything else. But, well, they fused into Knife with her own abilities and shit that, like, was not expected by existence, leading to existence being beaten by Knife, technically, which I'll get back to. Later, though, after a long time of Knife being one being, to the point that Knife had now become a single being, mentally as well, finally, the multiversal consumer got free. This led to the two of them fighting. This time, I think, was the time that the original knife needed to use the duplication and refusion ability to overpower the being. Leading to but this being was not killed by knife. She showed mercy. She let him live, and it became the original version of a different character that does show up a bit, but doesn't show up as much as a lot of other characters, called Ryan. Who's often the boyfriend of any given knife. Knife does not generally marry. Just permanently dating. This is not the only being that Knife has overpowered that probably should have been well over the power of Knife, the original Knife specifically. As I recall, there was also a short story, I guess one would say, of a being from outside of existence, as quote-unquote existence wasn't all that existed. It was just it hasn't been for like half the time that I've been making these stories. I decided to basically say, well, I meant for it to never be fully like that. Like after only a little bit, I was like, I want to name this something else. But like, there's a term there was a term I wanted to use, like a term that you could pretty easily use in a sentence that makes it sound like it's all that there is, but not. But also one that you could easily use in a sentence to suggest that it isn't. This word was reality, but I've used existence too long for the name of, like, this main reality to stop using that name. But this being came from outside of existence, came into it, and was like, and I think it was like either an explorer or a destroyer, I don't remember. But either way, this being came by to, like, either explore or destroy the existence. Just wanted to see what it was like on the inside. And it was like, okay, and tried to leave or tried to do something to it, but it didn't work. I think that was some, I can't remember if that was before or after the being tried talking to the original Knife. This was still at the time that was a character that existed. But yada yada, the character could not exit existence and also started losing any exact memory of being outside of existence. It could still remember that it was outside of existence at one point, but it was found out that the original Knife, being the most powerful being in existence, was not in fact a coincidence, but a rule at that point. Technically it was not a coincidence ever, but like it was with proper reason before, like using her abilities to power herself up to the point, increase her power to the point that she was stronger than any other being in there. But at a certain point, it just became the rule rather than just how she was. This meant that this being that should have been perfectly capable of overpowering Knife, considering they easily traveled between realities with no problem, just got stuck there permanently. And I don't remember what happened to them. I think they just kind of died, though. Or something. Trying to, like, get out, probably defeat the original Knife to get out of that situation or something. Failing, obviously. Then we get to the end of the past part of the past, a past far too unkind, where it gets unkind for this original Knife. The final plot point was, for the past, is at a certain point, or slowly, very slowly, Knife started to experience a descent into madness due to the accidental absorption of existence back when existence was the thing that back when existence was defeated by this Knife. Knife was trying to continue being the kind being that she's been for as long as she can remember. But at a certain point, or well, no, after a while, she noticed that she wasn't nearly as insane as she was before, but eventually she built all the way back up there again, and this is where the original Sabrina comes in. Finally, she talks to the original Knife, telling her, "Hey, I'm the reason you haven't gone completely insane at this point, but frankly, I can't do much more. I've been trying to keep the insanity of this growing insanity of yours at bay, so that everybody in existence is not in danger. But it's getting too powerful or something. So I might need to, like, just find a way to completely, since you're the most powerful being in existence, I might need to try my best to just completely remove you from existence." And eventually she does end up doing that. They succeed at removing that original Knife from existence, which also ends all of the universes, the multiverses, all of existence that she was controlling, and creates a unique, separated universe, which I'll give the name of and the story for later if I can get to it. And as well as giving this unique, separated universe, creates modern existence. And creates a character named Sword. That's like the embodiment of the evil in the original Knife. Now I realize I have a story that had a point to mention before that. A story that had two stories that I'd need to, like, bring how they connect to it. One of them being a past far too unkind. And Sword, specifically. Sword is, of course, the evil culmination of the old knife. But the arcade knife was the good culmination of the past knife. And both of them contain all the memories of the original knife. But of course have very different intended goals for the existence at the current point. One of the sword, the evil culmination of old knife, of original knife, has basically existence's thought process, but mostly her own different thought process of the destruction or overpowering of existence, as she doesn't really intend to. She's not existence. She's just herself with a large amount of existence culminated inside of her body. So her goal isn't to end all living beings or anything like that. Her goal is more personal. It is to show present-day existence her power. To show to them why she was the most powerful being in existence before, and preferably why they should fear her now. Although that's less of her end goal and more of her part-time goal. As in, like, she's at this point gotten pretty used to failing at her end goal, which is to show her true capabilities and re-become the most powerful being in existence, even overpowering the separated universe, which is separated with an extreme amount of power to the point that nothing from existence can actually get into said universe. Not even the very few that could potentially travel between realities not even they could theoretically travel to that one universe. Which I'll tell you about later, when I get to that story. But she still wants to overpower it. Also, you know what? I just realized there is a combination part of, like, the past Far Too Unkind story and the long story that I gave the first time, technically, is a main part of the combination. There have been many times that Sword has tried to overtake all of existence. All of them failing, but one of them, second most recent properly successful one, was when she didn't have anybody stopping her from doing anything due to the being that was there to stop her having disappeared. So she managed to successfully get and absorb all of the characters from existence. So one of the beings from the outside universe had to step in. The outside universe is basically the beings from there are basically the gods of their own realities. I don't want to spoil too much about it, though. But one of the beings that controlled this reality had to step in and stop Sword from doing her thing. Tried to use help to do it, but failed, and instead ended up just leading more right into their doom of being absorbed by a sword. But eventually, Sword was gotten out of this body. Well, actually not eventually, very easily actually, with the combination of both the machine that was built to separate Sword from the body made by absorbing like anybody she's encountered, and the just them being from the reality controlling universe, or the outside universe. Yeah, that's what the name I've given it for is. The combination of those two led to, of course, very easy right. Where was I? Right. So, after Sword was removed from the body, it was still a body of all of the everything combined into one, with the one in most control, with most power in the body, being Kayla from the future virtual reality story. And of course, this Kayla decided, hey, I'm gonna bring everybody back out to live their own lives and shit. But this Kayla also decided that she was going to stay a fused being, the fused being that she was now, so that she can keep everybody in existence in check. A total of 4 stories told. And the longest one was only about half an hour. Well, whatever, that's cool. I'll see you guys in the next stream. Adios. Bye.